Using a laser always produces a lot of smoke. As I have to do some laser projects, I remembered a thread in the Snapmaker Forum that showed an open laser module that was pretty dirty on the inside, which can lead to heat problems and, of course, a shorter lifespan of the laser. So that's the thread, and as you see, the laser module is really filthy on the inside and has to be cleaned regularly, and I wanted to prevent this. And luckily there's also a link to a design on Cloud3D for an alternative cover, which has the possibility for an external air intake so that the dust doesn't accumulate this much in the housing from sucking in the smoke. This cutout was a bit too big. I'm afraid that still fumes can get inside. And there's also this piece for air intake with a lot of drills, which I wanted to prevent to drill a lot of holes into the enclosure. So I did some redesigns, and first of all I did an alternative to the cover of the laser. It's just the model you saw, and I simply closed the big hole with a plate and made a cutout where the power connector sits. When taking off the cover from the 10-watt laser, be careful because the cable from the camera is glued to the cover. Just pull it off and then stick it back on the other part when mounting. So as you see, the new part fits perfectly, so I mounted the connector to the hose and just screwed the new cover back on the laser module. The dimensions of the original design are perfect. As said, I just remixed it for closing the big hole that no smoke can be sucked into the 10-watt laser again. The same creator has a mod for the 40-watt laser module too, which I will also link in the description. I didn't adapt this design, so I just 3D printed and installed it. It's perfect as it is. In this case, there is no antenna cable as there is no camera in the 40-watt laser module, but the intake fan has to be taken off the original cover and mounted back in the correct direction on the new one. Be aware that the intake part is not turnable anymore as on the 10-watt module, but in a fixed direction due to the mounted fan. This leads into the need of a more flexible hose for the 40-watt laser module. The next thing to do was to drill the hole. I used a 68mm hole saw and took this dimension for the design of the air intake part that will be mounted on the side panel of the enclosure. This part will also be designed to hold an intake fan for air pressure. As you can see, I did quite a few iterations of the intake part. I like to keep all the major versions of the design so I can reproduce which changes I made and if they worked out as they should. In this last iteration, I wanted to maximize the airflow from the fan into the tube, designing the opening as smooth as possible without edges causing turbulences, as I use a 40mm 5-volt fan with adjustable speed, which I will link in the description below. The whole intake part is held just by a simple 3D printed clamp. So this goes in there. After some try and error, I had the perfect design using as less filament as possible, no supports, and it could be mounted with a simple 3D printed clamp. I also went from an 80mm fan to a 40mm fan because there wasn't much difference in pressure due to the taper of the intake to the hose. That's because I'm using 5-volt fans. It's just an assistance for the fan in the laser head. Last but not least, I mounted the hose to both the laser module and the intake part and secured it with some duct tape. As you can see, laser cutting produces a lot of smoke, so it's important that the cooling fan of the laser head doesn't suck in the smoke which will close up the heat spread of the laser and which could lead to a shorter lifespan of the laserhead. As the 40-watt laser will produce even more fumes and I will have to cut some acrylic too, I will also add a stronger exhaustion fan and an additional exhaust to the enclosure. But this will be covered in one of the next videos. Thank you for watching and have fun making!